Just so you know. I put some stuff together just so you have something Sunday schoolish to take with you. All right? Number one, the irony of God with the country of Egypt. Okay? Can you tell me anything about it? It would have to do with coming and going from Egypt. Any ideas? It was kind of interesting to track this stuff down because it's stuff you don't think about a whole lot. Who came out of Egypt for safety? Who? Moses and nation Israel. All right? So you understand that he did that for a purpose. This is kind of a, this seems to be a hub in a lot of stories in the Old Testament. And it was also lapped over into the New Testament. So, as far as irony goes, what did he have on the other side of that agenda? Somebody went to Egypt to be safe. There you go. He's a pretty slick guy. So he had Mary and Joseph take off to Egypt to be safe, and he had the nation Israel leave Egypt to be safe. So it's one of the things in the Bible that you don't think about a lot, but the Lord uses everything to his advantage. Go ahead, you've got a furrowed brow.
I'm also thinking that didn't...
Oh, there's a lot of them.
That they brought the Jews to Egypt to save them during the famine.
Correct. Yes, they did. That's what I'm saying. It's really, if you start scouting around in the Old Testament a lot, you'll find that Egypt is a hub for a lot of things. Joseph,
Right.
and all of the things that go with that. I mean, it's just amazing how it shows up. We all think of it as what we see today as Egypt, but that's not the way it was. And what I read the other day in my little blip of news, they have just opened the library of Egypt that has been closed for many, 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 many years. And they have manuscripts in that library now open to the public from the 4th century. So they have tons and tons of Christian works, Judaism, and even Muslim works that are in that museum, and they have now opened it to the public.
It's kind of interesting considering it's a Muslim country. Why would they want to share?
Exactly. And once again, you need to realize that God's going to do what God's going to do, and there's not squat you can do about it. And I mean, for it to be a newsworthy item, it was all over the main news. When you look at the scientific side of it and the Christian stations and stuff, that was a big story. Okay? Now, the other thing I have, just so we have little doodads to work with, S-G-O-G. There. That ought to give you something to think about for about 2 minutes. It's called the Shekinah glory of God. You're going to see it again and again and again and again. This is the first time it ever existed. As far as any written history goes, it's when the nation was leaving Egypt, heading for the Promised Land. And it showed up in 2 different fashions. And you know them as cloud and fire. All right? The term glory of God is used 638 times in the Bible. Every time it's used, it has a denotation, a connotation, or a directional part of it that is telling you that God that nobody can see is giving you an indication in the visible sense that he is in this situation. Okay? That's how that's put together. The definition of it, by the way, is a supernatural occurrence of God into man's world. It is also never found in that form in the Bible. Shekinah is not there. You will see terms in the Hebrew, the name Shekan is there. All right? Mishkam is there, which is something glory, inhabited glory, dwelling glory. That's how it's put together in that particular situation. Also, the term that they use is either somebody is dwelling with you, or coming upon you, or involved with you. Those are the definitions that they work with. Nice stuff about it is, when you find, I chased it down a couple of different places, and it is not the idea of loftiness. When everybody says, oh, it's the Shekinah glory, you know, they make it this puffy thing where you surely don't want to get close to it. That's not the intent at all. As a matter of fact, the intent is just the opposite. It is that of nearness or closeness by the one wanting to be there. So when they say that Shekinah glory is showing up somewhere, it's showing up because it is in God's nature to want to communicate with the ones that mean the most to Him on planet Earth, or His Son when He showed up. So it was just kind of a lot of nice things. These are kind of 12 of the most intense versions of Shekinah glory showing up. Here you have in Exodus, with all of that going on, you got an RS, an MS, an NTAB, an NHOH, a B, a B, a T, a D, a A, R, and a HC. You got it all? Put that all away, and then you'll know exactly what you're doing. All right? This is when they were being protected from the Egyptians. This is the Red Sea. You have to understand, the Shekinah glory, or the movement of God, is what moved the water, what protected them from the Egyptians. It was a cloud that completely engulfed the Egyptians to where they could not tell where they were going. You have to understand, it would take probably several days, if not weeks, for the number of people to cross that water or to cross that dry land. It was not something that happened with Charlton Heston when everybody was done in 15 minutes. Okay? It was a process. It was a process, and the process gave them very good indication that all of these things were taking place because the one that they had left Egypt to find had found them and was doing what he said he would do, bring them into the promised land, because no other way would they have received that. Now, the next one is this one. Anybody think what an MS would be?
Mount Sinai?
Mount
Sinai?
Mount Sinai. All right? Why did he show up here? Because that's where he had to take Moses to get him up to the top of the hill so he could have a very intimate conversation about how he was going to put law and order into planet Earth. It did not exist prior to that. Okay? The next one. Leviticus 16:2, in tab. What are we talking about? Every time they parked that tabernacle, they were told to park it. Every time they stood it up, they were told to stand it up. Every time they were said to get out of Dodge, except for the high priest, they did it. One thing particular in that whole program, every time they set the tabernacle up, there was a cloud that descended over it because God said, this is my dwelling place. Hence, that is the term they use when you are endued or imbued with the Holy Spirit. Now He is inside of you. You are now a dwelling place. Okay? Next one, over here, Kings, in the H of H. That was not tough. The only one that could ever do that. No prophet ever went in there. The only ones that ever did it were ones that were high priests. And high priests of the cleanest program. They would go in and they would do what? They would go through the cloud into here, and there would be bright light over top of the mercy seat. They would go in, they would sprinkle the blood, and the cloud would descend upon it to receive what was sprinkled on the seat. And in doing so, what would happen to this? He would turn around and come out. They were good for a year. All right, as a nation, not as an individual. Just so that you got all that. Next one, what would this one be? Luke? Yep. Bethlehem. All right. What happened in Bethlehem? Anything particular? It's kind of interesting why he chose Bethlehem. Ma'am? Jesus was born in Bethlehem. That was a big one. I think I found a couple more if I can find them again. I don't know whether I can or not. But the thing of it is, when all of these things take place, there's a purpose. A lot of Bethlehem had to do with King David. This is the main reason the king of the nations was there, and the king of the world would also be born in the same place. All right? So that's what you're doing. What would the next one be? Matthew 3:16. Anybody think of what that B would be? You got a Bible, you can look it up. Anything? Born? Yeah. And understand something. Who showed up when he was born? A host. And a host is spoken of as coming from glory. Anytime glory is mentioned in a fashion like that, it is this Shekinah glory coming down to be in a particular person, place, or thing to indicate that it is highly favored among the God of the universe.
Baptism. Baptism.
Baptism. Same thing. How did it happen? What descended? A dove. All right? All the neat things. What would the T be? I don't know. Look it up.
Transfiguration.
Transfiguration. They're out of order for some reason here. I don't know why that is, and that's how it comes in the book. Transfiguration. What happened there?
That's when they went up on the
It went up on the mountain. And what descended on the mountain?
Bright cloud.
A cloud. All right, you get the picture? So he's got a plan and he's got a way. And when you see the cloud and when you see light, fire, lightning, any of those things, you realize that it is important and it is notable to God to show up for these events. What's the next one over here is the death on the cross. What showed up on that one? This one is the one that is really interesting to me. What happened? Before that, when he's hanging on the cross, something happened.
The temple was torn.
There you go. They said something specific in the scriptures. It was like the depth of darkness when he died. All right? Indicating what? The light that was sent to the world had been temporarily snuffed out. At least so the rest of the bunch would think. They'd like you to think that. All we know is you just put a little, what is it they call it in my song? Put a bushel? Hide your light under a bushel? I'm going to let it shine. Yeah. Okay, we don't have to say it. That's okay. Now, the next one's going to be, you end up going down to Acts, and it's going to be the ascension, which is mentioned again up in the other one. Now, here's the last. What do you got here with Thessalonians? The rapture. How are we to identify the rapture as Christians? And you better know how to identify it, because you are going to see something in the clouds that will indicate to you that it's time to be gone. It'll be kind of quick. And in the rapture, we will see his face, and at the instant you see his face, you're going to be snapped out of your shoes so fast that you are not going to mind leaving them behind. There are going to be a bunch of cars without drivers. There'll be a bunch of planes falling out of the sky. All of those things are taking place. Now, and the last one, the one that appears to be relatively important, is the second coming. And how does he do that? Once again, he comes on a white horse in the clouds. Shekinah glory follows this guy everywhere he goes. You don't get away from it. You don't realize now, and if you did, you would probably tune your act up a little bit. You are a reflector of Shekinah glory when you are living for Christ.
Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and seated on the cloud, one like a son of man, with a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand.
And he's not coming to kiss him on the forehead. Okay? He's coming to square away the books before something else takes place, and that's something we would call the millennium. So please understand something. When you're reading in your King James, NIV, anywhere you see the word glory, you can insert Shekinah in there. And understand that when he talks about him wanting to be part of your life, he will say, I want to be Shekinah in you. I want to tabernacle with you. I want to be in you. I want to be the dwelling place where you hang your soul, your heart, and your spirit. And that's what he's doing with all these little indicators here. And it's fun for me to do this kind of stuff. The nice thing about it is there's Greek terms for this, and the Greek terms, how do you say that, Scott? S-K-E-S, skenos? Okay. And in the Greek, they don't get so much into the dwelling part, but the housing part. Okay? And that's where we find he came and tabernacled with us. So the Greek kind of goes into the dwelling place. Why? Because the physical is no longer on display. It is now the internal. It is now what happens to you internally, how you set up the tabernacle when he shows up, and how you use it. Hence, I always, in my biology classes, and I studied all that loot, I looked at all the things people do to their tabernacles and said, what an idiot. So, I was kind of hesitant to do things to mine. Anyway, there, simple enough. Now you know Shekinah glory. And you realize that it's an important part of your life. All right, let me pray real quick and I'll turn it in. Yo, yes ma'am.
Well, I was just gonna say for when you pray,
I have to remember Tom.
yes, and the girl that we're praying for, Tyra, that has the disease called Moya Moya. She went to Shands on Friday. They spent like 2 hours with the doctor going over everything. She will have brain surgery this week. They don't have a day yet, but it will be this week. So just keep her in your prayers.
So put Moya Moya on your calendar every day this week.
She-
Really?
One side is blocked 75% and the other side is blocked 80. So she has to have it.
Right. And she's aware of it. She wants it all done now. And your prayers have made an impact on the family. They have responded several times to her through emails telling her that they just can't imagine anybody going to that extent. For somebody that I would have known if I tripped over. Okay? That's what it's all about. All right?
Hey, Bobby.
Yo.
One last thing.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Oh, man.
just wanted to say thanks
Well, you're very welcome.
for that. All of the other days of the year that we get to be here. So we do want to
It's a
say
blessing.
thank you, that we love you, and we appreciate the time that you spend.
Amen.
That gets us better prepared for that
Kathy, too. And you can thank Alice, she's the typist. Yeah.
Well, behind every good man is
2 women.
A couple
Yeah,
of
40
them.
women, yeah, I know. Without a doubt. I can't think of anything else, but just, think about what we talked about with Sunday school, and I'll give them an okay on the 8 o'clock if it's okay with you guys.
Okay, do we have time?
And we have time, I just want you to put it through the old system and think about it. I mean, that's getting up early, I understand. There'll be less traffic, you don't have to worry about the motorcycle guys, and, you know, the police are probably changing shifts, so you're safe for speeding, you know. You should be good. So, at any rate,
You don't have to worry about that yellow, red
that's,
anymore?
there you go, just tell them you've got a dispensation from Sunday school, all right? All right, let's pray and I'll turn you loose. We thank you, Lord, for the fact that fellowship is a blast. And we lift the ones to you now that we continue to lift to you, that are having wrestling matches with their earthly bodies, that need surgeries, and Tom needing extra parts put in, whatever the case might be. Pray that you just watch over her. You watch over Mom and allow her just to see the people she needs to see before she leaves this earth. And that you watch over Tom so that big hulk of a person can continue on. They say it'll be very, very positive after these few treatments, that he'll be just fine. And we thank you for all the things that you put into doctors' heads to allow them to do, and for all the sweetheart nurses we talked to. And above all, pray that you just watch over this class and allow them just to enjoy the fellowship of this season and have them travel safely, get them back here safely, and we put it all in your hands because we trust the living daylights out of you. In Christ's name.
Amen.